Well, U.S. News and World Report suggests 50 ways to improve your life. Some of these are ride a bicycle to work, get a new toothbrush, move to Vermont, replace the urge for chocolate with exercise. That's a real hard one to do, isn't it? Have your eyes checked, take an afternoon nap, get some new job skills, write and publish your own book, learn to speak Russian. That might have some interesting aspects to that this year. Watch TV free online, eat your own spinach, line dry your laundry. I don't understand that one too well, especially in the wintertime. But switch to a push mower. I can't go for that one either. Teach your kids to cook. That's a good idea. Vicky's been teaching our grandkids about cooking. But like usual, there's nothing in this list about spiritual improvement, is there? So we're going to go to God's Word for that today. God gives us resolutions that have eternal value, and so we're going to look at that. And we're going to go to Ephesians 5:15 to begin our study, and we'll go from there into some of the wisdom literature in the Old Testament to connect that together. But Ephesians 5:15 says, "See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time because the days are evil. Therefore do not be unwise, but understand what the will of the Lord is." Now Paul writes here about the importance of redeeming the time. And to redeem means to make something profitable, to take something that you've been given and give it greater profitability and make it more beneficial. A large number of people over the age of 95 were asked one question. It was an open-ended question, and they could answer any way they wished. No religion connected with it, no anticipated response. Just answer the question. The question was, if you could live your life over again, what would you do differently? And so if I could live my life over again as a 95-year-old, this was their answers. The three most popular answers were these: I would reflect more, I would risk more, I would do more things that live on after I'm dead. Just doing these three things would have made life more profitable, they said. So we can take note about that for ourselves as well. This morning's New Year message is entitled, Be a Wisdom Seeker. And so Paul wrote, "Therefore do not be unwise, but understand what the will of the Lord is." And I think we could all find a lot of time has been redeemed if we spend more of our focus this coming year seeking God's wise counsel about how to live according to His will. In the Bible, there are what is called wisdom books. They are Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Solomon. Now, Solomon was a wisdom seeker. You all probably know the story. When he was just a young king, he was in prayer one day. He was doing, I think, a burnt offering unto the Lord, and he was praying, and the Lord spoke to him and said, "Ask me whatever you want, and I'll give it to you." Well, what Solomon asked for was maybe surprising. He didn't ask for riches or fame, but he asked for wisdom. And so he was a wisdom seeker, and so God gave him great wisdom. And so it's not surprising that three of these wisdom books were written by Solomon. And he wrote in Proverbs 1, "The Proverbs of Solomon the son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, judgment, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and increase learning." Now, toward the end of Solomon's life, he wrote the book of Ecclesiastes. Now, this wisdom book was written as a look back over his life with some regrets as to how he could have done things better and things that were more profitable to the overall focus that God had given him with wisdom. And then some wise conclusions that he especially wanted to share with the young people of his kingdom. And this morning I want to explore some of these as resolutions for the year 2017. There's a sense of urgency about Solomon's message. The urgency comes from the conviction that one does not have as much time as one might think. I am assessing that a little more these days. So, he once was young, he says, but now he is old. And he spent some time describing what it means, what it's like to be old. It's interesting. Solomon's word of wisdom to us in our text is to get started. Don't postpone anything. Don't procrastinate. Don't wait for guaranteed speedy results. But the fulfilled life takes time and is interspersed with many things. This old wisdom seeker has a lot to say about the best way to live and enjoy the profit or redeem the time in one's life. This morning we're going to narrow down what he said to selected verses in Ecclesiastes chapters 10 and 11. So we're going to go to Ecclesiastes 10, verse 1. Dead flies putrefy the perfumer's ointment and cause it to give off a foul odor. So does a little folly to one respected for wisdom and honor. So Solomon is telling us that just one act of foolishness can work on a highly respected person in such a way to where that person loses respect from those around them. The picture is of an expensive bottle of perfume that has been invaded by flies. And if they are removed immediately, there's really no problem. But if they have been there a while, then the odor is repugnant. It's no longer a sweet-smelling perfume, but a repugnant smell. If an honored and respected person entertains some foolish behavior, but rejects it, there is no problem. But if the thoughts that they're having, the foolish thoughts they might be having, take root and remain, then foolish choices will be made, and eventually honor and respect will be lost. Now, the word folly here essentially means to act hastily without considering the consequences. It means not to have foresight or to use good sense or good judgment about things. Guys, God has created us to be the perfume to the world. And He has plans for us to make a redemptive difference in this world. But letting some stinky fly remain in our lives can make our life experience turn sour. Failure does not have to be permanent. But to continue entertaining it can cause one to give their life a big thumbs down, to keep those flies in the perfume. Now, resolution number 1 is when making decisions, think about what the long-term impact of these choices might be. Be a wisdom seeker. Solomon's wise counsel is that a person's reputation for being honorable and wise can be quickly broken by some foolish and impulsive choice. In 2017, let us all resolve to make plans and say things to others that are well thought out and will redeem the time. One knee-jerk reaction to someone or to a situation can set the course of life in a self-destructive way. Verse 2, a wise man's heart is at his right hand, but a fool's heart at his left. Solomon is not writing about right-wing and left-wing political agendas here. So don't go there in your thoughts. The right hand is symbolic of a couple of things. It stands for what is of value and worthy of pursuit. It is what we mean when we say the person is headed in a right direction. It also refers to where God is in priority for us, and because He is in what God blesses. In Psalm 16, verse 8, it says, I have set the Lord always before me, because He is at my right hand, I shall not be moved. So really we're talking about the right hand being in the presence of God and keeping the focus of one's heart on the Lord. The foolish person's heart is constantly resisting direction from the Lord and goes to the left, away from the presence of the Lord. The foolish person does not listen and does not learn. The heart is that inner place in the soul where spiritual motivation occurs, where God meets with us and He gives us direction and guidance. The foolish person makes a choice in his or her heart to not believe in what God desires or says. Resolution number 2, keep your heart turned toward God and what He blesses. Be a wisdom seeker. There's a proverb that tells us, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. The heart has been designed by the Creator for His own Spirit to dwell in and to provide motivation for life that creates a blessed life. Let us turn our hearts to the right hand and not to the left hand. Turn to the right hand where eternal wisdom is found. Verse 4. If the spirit of the ruler rises against you, do not leave your post, for conciliation pacifies great offenses. This piece of wise advice is an exhortation to remember who or what you're up against. A ruler may even behave with a foolish attitude toward a person. If someone is in a position of authority over you and they cop an attitude towards you, whether right or wrong, it is best to not react to it with a foolish attitude as well, and to not leave your post. Have you ever known someone who quit a job because the boss or supervisor spoke to them in an unkind way or spoke to them with anger in their voice? The advice here is not to react to an angry person in a spiteful way. Do not quit your job in a fit of anger. You may need that boss's reference for your next job, if there is a job available. Often things can be sorted out and worked out once everyone is cooled off. So stay on your post. I think there is another more subtle application here, though. The ruler in one's life could be a manipulative, controlling person who is making life difficult for you. And the temptation is to give ground as a means of appeasement to that person. But the word translated pacifies means the prescribed medicine to cure an illness. That medicine is to remain on one's post, to not give ground. The manipulator likely wants his or her victim to just go away. And if so, then the oppressive controller has won, and there will be a significant loss, and then a long recovery time perhaps needed for the person who's been offended by that controlling person in their life. In my own experience, I've found that if I stay the course, it is usually the manipulator who makes the exit or changes attitudes in that situation. Stay on the post. Resolution 3, stay the course even when having to deal with a difficult authority person or manipulative people in your life. Be a wisdom seeker. I do not think that Solomon is saying here that we should allow someone to abuse us or to run over us, but it seems he is saying that it is often best to dig in our heels until a better day comes. The offensive ruler in our lives may even gain respect for us for having not quit, for staying on the post. Everyone is tempted to quit, but that bad news person in our lives is only one tiny part of the big picture of life. Remember that. Don't make them the big part of your life. They are only a small part, a tiny part. Yogi Berra, famous catcher for the New York Yankees, long, long ago, he was giving an address to the graduates at Montclair State University. And this is the advice that he gave the students there. He said, first, never give up because it ain't over till it's over. How many of you have heard that advice? Second, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. Third, don't always follow the crowd. Nobody goes there anymore. It's too crowded. Fourth, stay alert. You can observe a lot just by watching. Fifth and last, remember that whatever you do in your life, 90% of it is half mental. So be careful about those things that are only half mental, because you might just need to stay the course instead. So let's move on to verse 10 now. If the axe is dull and one does not sharpen the edge, then he must use more strength. But wisdom brings success. The word picture here is very obvious. Solomon has just written about a person who's been splitting wood. And there's this big pile of wood that represents the rest of a person's life. It represents perhaps the dreams and visions and ambitions that a person has. It represents a person's potential. It is really difficult to split wood with a dull axe. And that axe represents the mind of a person. Our minds can become dull and we can't make any headway because of it. No one can get very far through life achieving goals, dreams, and ambitions with a dull mind. Resolution number 4, keep your mind sharp with learning opportunities and always seek the wise counsel of God. Be a wisdom seeker. Sometimes there is a temptation to resist counsel, to think one already knows what he or she needs to know to take on that pile of wood. Whoever thinks he or she already knows all that is needed for life, not willing to learn anything new, will have a dull mind. A person who keeps trying to cut wood with a dull axe is being foolish because he or she keeps at it and becomes exhausted in the process. It also is true that we can become emotionally exhausted from continuing to follow patterns of behavior that do not work, that are not productive. We keep welding the dull axe of this is how I've always done it, even though it no longer is effective. The resolution is to stop what we are ineffectively doing and sharpen the axe by seeking God's wisdom about a better way of doing things. Be a wisdom seeker. Ecclesiastes 11:1, cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Now, in all likelihood, casting bread upon the waters refers to overseas commerce. When a merchant entrusted his goods to be sent overseas, it was always a risky choice because the storms and absence of hands-on control of the merchandise was, anything could happen. It was entrusted to the unknown with the hope that a great profit would be achieved. And in essence, what Solomon is saying here is that it's a good idea at times to take some risk in life in hoping for a great profit from it. The uniqueness of overseas commerce was that a merchant had to wait many days for his profit, whereas in an in-town transaction, and maybe you run a shopping center store or something, the profit is immediately realized. The dilemma was that there were many days when the condition and ultimate fate of the merchandise and the transaction was unknown to the merchant. Things were out of his control. Then eventually word would arrive that the transaction had been completed and a nice profit received from it. The old saying, nothing ventured, nothing gained, is kind of what we are hearing. The intention here is to use this as a parable about our relationship with God. When a person entrusts his or her life to God and obediently follows His guidance in something, there's a period where nothing seems to be happening. You ever gone through one of those? God has kind of given you something special to do. He's given you some talents. He's given you something to do. And you say, okay, God, I'm doing it. And it's like God's silent. It's like nothing is happening. And we're tempted to just kind of get despondent and discouraged at those times. But we need to trust in God that when we put something in His care, that cast our bread upon the waters of trust, then something will come back to us. But because we have faith in God, we can take the risk of taking a new step in life. The bread is cast upon the water. Resolution number 5, do not settle on or conform to what is easy. Take some faith-based risk in life for greater opportunities, even if it takes a while to arrive. Be a wisdom seeker. When I graduated from high school, the local newspaper offered me a good job. And I could also go to Three Rivers Junior College while I was working. And also live at home, so there'd be no living expenses. All the answers were provided to me. There was no mystery there. But the conviction in my heart was that it was God's will for me to go to Evangel University for my college education. And it was scary. I didn't have the money to go. I didn't know what I would do when I got there. It was a bigger world than I was used to living in, and academically a much greater challenge for me. It would require me to embrace the unknown, and I would have to cast my bread upon the water. After many days, I graduated, having been impacted greatly by my experience at that school and gaining much profitable experience in ministry as well. You see, faith is the ship which carries us forward through the mystery of what we do not know into a deeper and more profitable understanding of life. Hebrews 11:1 says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. By faith Noah cast his bread upon the water, and started building the ark, even though everyone told him he was crazy. By faith, Abraham cast his bread upon the water and headed toward the promised land, even though he had to leave what was familiar to him. Listen, it is God's way. Remember the old saying, again, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Be a wisdom seeker. Verse 3, if the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves upon the earth. And if a tree falls to the south or the north, in the place where the tree falls, there it shall lie. He who observes the wind will not sow, and he who regards the clouds will not reap. In a venture of faith, it will sometimes rain on what we are doing. Storms will arise. We will not have perfect weather all the time. When the clouds become full, they will empty themselves. We've had a lot of that the last couple of days. When a tree is ready to fall, it will fall. And its location on the ground will announce its falling. In a venture of faith, there will inevitably be fallen trees to remove or get around in order to proceed. Well, just this past year, Vicki and I were up in Gallatin eating some dinner, and she gets a call from our neighbor and says, did you know that there was a storm that just came through here, and that great big tree in your front yard is now uprooted and laying on its side? And Vicki said, no, we didn't know that. Sure enough, when we got home, it had fallen and it laid where it fell, And then we had to get busy and do everything we could to remove the tree, It happens. It was one of those maple trees that's roots go sideways instead of down. If you got one of those, watch out. You'll probably lose that tree someday. Because when a big wind comes up after a lot of rain, it's just going to say, I'm ready to fall. I can't stay rooted anymore. And it's going to fall over. And so, too often we are tempted to give up on a venture or an ambition because the proverbial rain and wind causes a tree to fall, blocking the road where we want to go in life. Or the rain and wind fools us into thinking that there's no use any longer in sowing into that venture of faith that we've started. If we give in to that foolish thinking, we will not experience the fulfillment of our vision for something. We will stop right where we are and not proceed. We are tempted to predict, the wind is blowing, so a tree probably will fall across my way. I had better not move forward. There is a cloud, it must be going to storm. So I'll just do the known and safe thing, even though my life will be less because of it. We may say something bad is going to happen, so I might as well give up investing into the future. When we do that, worry is the result. It takes over our lives and our dreams, and it keeps us from experiencing the fulfillment in life that we are seeking. Once we start focusing our minds on the probability of problems, we will stop moving and growing. Dissatisfaction, pessimism will replace vision and faith. Resolution number 6. Do not quit on your dreams when obstacles appear or pessimism surrounds you. Be a wisdom seeker. Francis Fenelon, a 17th century French bishop, said, do not worry about the future. Worry quenches the work of grace within you. The future belongs to God. He is in charge of all things. Never second guess Him. Now we come to the punchline. Much of what God does is a mystery to us. We learn to trust that He has a way to get us through every storm and around every fallen tree. In verse 5 it says, and you do not know what is the way of the wind, or how the bones grow in the womb of her who is with child. So you do not know the works of God who makes everything. There it is again. Solomon is telling us something else that we do not know. You remember, the dull mind thinks it knows everything, right? But, Solomon, this very wise man, is saying, you don't know everything, and be okay with that. Trust God, So we don't know what the wind will do next. It has a mind of its own. We look at the miracle of a baby growing inside of a young mother and marvel at how that happens. This is Solomon's answer to pessimism. God is working in our lives when we do not know what is going on, or when we cannot see our way through some storm or obstacle that has fallen across that way. I love the promise of Romans 8:28, and we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. And we know that that purpose he was describing is that we be conformed to the image of his Son, be conformed in character to his Son. We are remiss to live life as if we are entirely on our own. God, who made the atmosphere and the wind, as well as a means for a new person to be formed in a mother's womb, certainly knows how to get through storms and how to get around fallen trees. How does he intervene for us? By giving his wisdom to all of those who seek it. Be a wisdom seeker. Resolution number 7, trust God and his wise counsel. The final word of exhortation today comes from Proverbs. God's wisdom comes to those who have unreserved trust in him. Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. I heard somebody quote that just this past week, and they were so comforted by that truth. Let's read it again. Trust the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. So in the year 2017, the call to all of us is to trust the Lord with the whole heart, to stop leaning on our own flawed thinking. That does nothing but create a dull mind. To seek to know him and his ways, to be a wisdom seeker in everything. And I believe by year's end, we will hear some great testimonies about how God's wise counsel made all the difference between mediocrity and a personal sense of fulfillment. I believe we will hear about how God's wisdom saved some of us from giving up on a personal vision in life, and how his wise counsel saved some of us from foolish choices as well. Be a wisdom seeker. Let's stand together.